I am never going away again. Or maybe I should, because I tell you, that was an amazing week for pro wrestling. Also, hello my friends, it is I, Simon Miller, and yes, if you think Simon, you sound very weird today, somebody wrestling over the weekend may have been kneed right in the mouth and my jaw came down, I bit my tongue so hard, and now I kind of have a lisp. So if I wasn't already ridiculous as a human being, now I am struggling to speak. But nothing stops me, because I am that G, whatever the flub that means, but also AEW just gave us their Revolution show. Well, in terms of shows of the year, it's gonna be in there. Let's up those doubts. It also kicked off with MJF versus Hangman Adam Page, and if you are a diehard AEW fan, you should have been right into this. It's like the OGs fighting each other, and they're in the main event. Well, here they kicked off the show. You're right, I shouldn't be allowed to do this. They just fought and fought as well, because of course they did. They hate each other, when MJF decided to thrust in the direction of Hangman Adam Page's face. The Hangman was so mad, he came back, but then Maxwell spat at him. I was like, what the flub is going on? Hangman then came back with all of the dives, including his amazing moonsault to the outside. That kind of rhymes, so it must be true. When he also wanted to get the Deadeye, but MJF was like, no, I'm gonna hit you with the Heat Seeker. When actually Freeman did get hit with the Deadeye, 1-2, ooh. I mean, I wrote it on a t-shirt, ProWrestlingTees.com. There was then another awesome near fall when MJF was able to kick out of the buckshot lariat, because we were gonna try and protect both guys here. But MJF was not protecting the spirit of taste, because he then spat at Hangman again. I was like, well, that is now getting a little bit disgusting. He was basically imitating a llama here, because I presume they spit, I don't know, I am an idiot. When the cowboy was like, well, I am going to get you with this buckshot lariat, because I'm sure another will do the job. The Maxwell was just like, all right, well, I'll get out the way. That worked too, because Hangman then went flying into the Syndicate Steel Steps. And because they were fighting on the outside, I tell you, they kind of went tippity-toe, up, down, here we go, with the Tombstone Pile Driver, when Maxwell was able to get into the death position, I suppose, and he didn't just hit Page on the floor, he jumped up and gave him a Tombstone Pile Driver on a chair that was in the seated position. I don't think I've ever seen that before. It also led to the best count-out tease, but of course Hangman and Page got back in at the 9.999. And this is when MJF had a meltdown. We got the character work. He was like, why do these fans love you so much, but they don't love me? Honestly, I love it so much. It's a little bit on the nose, but it just makes the MJF persona mean so much. Give it a tick. Page then able to reverse on the Heat Seeker into a Deadeye. Well, I kid you not. You've got to see this. There's probably a picture on the screen right now. Hangman hit him with the Angel's Wings, which was a tribute to Christopher Daniels. And Maxwell Jacob Friedman landed right on his face. Now, I don't want to be that guy, but I hope he is okay. I genuinely jumped out of my skin. I mean, not genuinely, I'd be stood here right now as blood and bones, but it was absolutely terrifying. It definitely helped because when MJF got to his feet, he was all wibbly-gibbly like he was in a video game. Hangman came back in with his 74,000 buckshot lariat. 1, 2, 3. So of course now we should argue well, who should have won and who should have lost. That just makes for a good wrestling match. It's like sports. As long as we have programs for both of them coming out of this, well, it's going to be absolutely faboo. And at one point we should do it again, and MJF should win that one. These two could fight forever. It's getting a massive up. What a start to the show. Well, I think AEW decided you want some good wrestling. We're gonna give you some good tight wrestling. Because it was Mercedes-Benz versus Momo Watanabe for the TBS Championship. And I do have to throw a little bit of a down in there because this was such a well-wrestled match, as we've already talked about, but at no point did I ever think that Momo was gonna win that championship. I just think sometimes AEW does fall into that pattern. We just need to focus on the build a little bit more. That part gets it down. It just meant when you did get to the 1-2 oohs, well, you didn't bite. Trust me, that's actually a good thing. I never want to bite again. I'm actually in a lot of pain. Otherwise though, you can see why Mercedes pushed for this, because at the moment she's just on a tear. She has become, if you get in the ring with me and you don't have a good match, well that could be on you, because right now I'm great. Thankfully Momo was up for the challenge, apart from, oh my gosh, because these two laid it in as well, and when we got to the kicks, well, one did go awry, and I'm pretty sure that Watanabe just booted Mercedes right in the face. You could see in her expression, she was like, I didn't mean to do that. Momo also loves the cross-face chicken win, so she's now my favorite person on the planet, and I like to think that Bob Backlund rang up after this, and he was like, I appreciate that. Momo Watanabe was like, why are you calling me Bob? I don't know what we're talking about. We then got proper back and forth madness with crossfaces and these power bombs when they were just lobbing each other into the ring apron. And look, I checked in my fake wrestling book, it was the hardest part of the ring. They then traded the three amigos, which the fans absolutely loved, when the chicken win was back. All of a sudden I got hungry. And honestly, this urinage we threw in there and the boots to the face actually got a little bit scary, I tell you. Because, like I say, they were just boots to the face. We did have a pretty good 1-2 after one of those, but then Momo kind of fell on her ankle, and it looked like she injured herself too, so she is okay. This is when Mercedes was like, haha, I'm gonna hit all my moves. When she applied the statement maker, tap out victory. So this was just so fun to watch, and while it probably won't last long in the memory, it was just good wrestling for the sake of good wrestling, which is what AEW should be. They walk around talking about that all of the time. And yeah, in terms of her recent matches, Mercedes doesn't miss up. When Ricochet and Swerve Strickland walked to the ring for their #1 contender match, and honestly, somebody put them in science class, because they have amazing chemistry. Ricochet especially deserves all the credit in the world because he just feels like a different person ever since he did debut in AEW. And as for Swerve, well man, I'll give you a spoiler here. He did win this match, meaning he is now the #1 contender. And I think we gotta belt this guy up again. He's just too good. It was also hilarious because Prince Nana's robe was right there on the ropes. He didn't do anything about it. So there was a force field around him, but moreover, he had decided, I am going to walk the emotional path here. So when Swerve Strickland absolutely kicked the shit out of Ricochet to begin, and he almost was like, oh, I am gonna get DQ'd, the Prince was like, no, don't do it. When Swerve pushed him on his ass. I was like, I think you should have done that. Now, it did make sense he'd gone to that bad place in his brain, but Nana was so mad, he just walked off. And I was like, well, that's great. It's another breakup in professional wrestling. How am I meant to handle this? They then began to trade because we were getting springboard hurricane ranas. The Swerve just powerbombed everything that moved, where they just went crashing into the ring apron, which is another time we've done this. It's like wrestlers don't know this is the hardest part of the ring, and you're both going to walk away hurt. Swerve by this point had totally lost his mind, though, when they went to Adan the announce table, and they basically hit a vertebraker. And this damn table didn't break. I think going forward, we need to change the wood. Looks like somebody's brain exploded. Swerve then hit the stomp, which was 1-2 #1, and we were going to get a bunch of these, because right afterwards, Ricochet hit the 630, but that was only a 1-2 2. This is when I laughed, because Prince Nana then walked out. He was like, oh yeah, my robe, and he put it on. So I can only imagine he'd gone to the back, and someone said, dude, come here, you know you can grab it. It was like, you're right, I'll go sort it out. Ricochet is so damn good though as this character, because he just went and got it right back, and he started doing moves in the robe, like he even hit the vertigo, and guess what happened? It's on the shirt. They both upped the ante here too, and because it was a #1 contendership match, you had no idea which way it was going to go, even though we believed it was going to be Swerve. But he then hit 2 house calls, and Ricochet kicked out the 1-2 again. At that point, I was like, man, I don't know. Then, to be fair, Swerve just grabbed him and gave him the JML driver, or the big pressure. That was it. 1, 2, 3. We also got the moment afterwards when Swerve actually sort of bent down and presented the robe to Prince Nana. Although I don't think this story is finished. And yeah, Swerve Strickland is now the #1 contender. Ricochet is still in such a good position because he has done such tremendous work. They just have such good chemistry. To repeat myself, I could watch them fight forever, or the predetermined amount of time they got for a show. Probably about 15 minutes. That felt about right. When yes, I am going to become a broken record because yes, as good as Okada versus Brody King for the Continental title was, and really you should go and see it, I never really believed that championship was going to change hands, mostly because this feud started about 3 days ago. So it is just another little bit of a down, but again, it didn't make a blind bit of difference to your watching of this. Although Brody King, somebody should give him a hug today, because he had basically gone, I am going to do my damnedest to make people think I can win this championship, and he actually couldn't have done a better job. Also want to shout out Excalibur, who went, Okada joining AEW is like Messi joining Inter Miami. Like, dude, that one doesn't work at all. Some people still like to bitch, ironically, about this new Okada, although he's now just the Okada in AEW. But I think he's so much fun. And really, this match was kind of situated around Brody King being like, I'm going to cannonball you into Barry Barricade. And Okada being like, well, I don't want that. And then towards the end of the match, it happened anyway, good for him. As ever though, every time King does get knocked down, he just gets back to his feet. So AEW has just figured him out. Nobody wants to see him sell. He's too big and he's too much of a badass. He should be like a monster from the deep. Okada eventually missed his drop kick too, and the lariat that Brody hit him with. Well, I need somebody to call me today and tell me that Okada's head is still attached to his neck. That's how sick it was. What's that? It was stupid that I was worried about Okada's head? Well, that's a very good point. King was also able to avoid the Rainmaker when he hit his running DVD and a cannonball. And again, this is what I'm talking about. If you wanted to believe, you probably could have done. Okada, he's become a mega heel, so he just got a chair in the ring. The referee was like, you can't do that, Okada. He was like, yeah, I know. I only did it to distract you. Instead, he just whammed Brody in the head with his championship, and Brody King still got out. And then, yeah, he went for the Gonzo bomb. That didn't work. He got drop kicked. He got hit with the Rainmaker 1, 2, 3. This is kind of me repeating myself for the third, fourth time. We just went out of our way to ensure we can still go. This Brody King is so terrifying. Whereas Okada is still the champion. And now it does feel like he's going to head to All In to have a match with a certain somebody as we reunite two championships. And well, that could be all time, folks. So this was a really fun match. Sums up the whole card. Up. When we apparently got to controversy number 1, I'm going to be able to sum that one up nice and simple. My ass. For it was the Hurt Syndicate defending their tag team titles against the Outrunners. Some people are like, oh man, we shouldn't have done this on an AEW pay-per-view. Why? What the flub is wrong with you? When I do watch any wrestling show, I want some variety, and at some point, especially slap bang in the middle, I want something a little bit different. And that delivered and then some. Wrestling also, when you break it right down, is just about wanting people to win that are meant to be babyfaces. That is how I feel about Turbo or Truth. Like, I never actually thought they were going to win the titles, but did I urge it through my tootsie toes? You bet your ass. I think we also saw Lio Rush and Axel Andretti watching on too, and that is also the gimmick here. Because really, if you were going to break this match down a la D-Generation X, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin killed these guys. If they go and take on Leo in action, well, they'll kill them too. They're the Hurt Syndicate and they're here for business. The Outrunners were still able to kind of dodge and duck and dive a little bit to get the Hurt Syndicate out the ring. I was like, this is wonderful. It's like 1986 in the Silver Superdome. But yes, even after a hot tag flurry, essentially the Hurt Syndicate just turned on their destructor vision, whatever that is. They ran through these guys. And the last few moves, the ended with spears and who knows what else, was a bit like that Simpsons meme. We better stop this. I think they're already dead. Shelton Benjamin also hit this knee in there that I thought knocked off somebody's nose. Listen, it was a shame that the 20-year rookies weren't able to get the win, but at the same time, the Hurt Syndicate are just on this smash journey. So as long as eventually they do get into a proper feud, and we continue to feature the AEW tag team titles, well, I just enjoyed this, and I thought it broke up AEW Revolution very well. I am giving it an up. Believe you me, I watch a lot of wrestling. I've seen way worse. I thought this did exactly what it needed to do. Especially because next, Mariah May and Toni Storm came out for their AEW women's title match, the Hollywood ending stipulation, whatever you want to call it. And if we are going to start ranking the most brutal matches in AEW history, well, this one at the very least has to be top 3. And even poor Luther got absolutely smashed around here on the stage when we were getting pile drivers on the concrete, when Toni Storm just grabbed Mariah May, did a high sky from that place through a table. All of that happened in the first 2 minutes. There was then DDTs onto Barry Barricade, a Storm Zero by Mariah May as Toni started to bleed. And oh my gosh, there was a lot of that red stuff. When there was chains and chairs, essentially Mariah walking around going, ha ha, I'm going to cause as much carnage as possible because I'm a little bit nuts. And honestly felt like watching a horror movie, especially because then they had broken champagne bottles, one of which went into Toni Storm's area, her special place. I don't know how to see it. And they did that 10 pie thing, that's not what it's called, but those classic crazy death matches when you tape your fists and you stick glass onto them, then they punch each other in the face. And have a guess what happened, my friends? Not this, it's like a robot fighting, but everybody was bleeding. And it was like the kind of blood where you're like, man, I can handle it. You're actually freaking out. So I really hope there's somebody watching this with their grandparents, because I am a sick guy. Just look at it, it's on the screen right now. That's Toni Storm, and she won. Mariah soon got the Mayday, and was basically just hurling Toni into all of this glass, though she was only able to get a 1-2-ooh. And really, and this is why this feud has been so amazing, despite all of this weapons and all of this, it's disgusting, all of a sudden, Toni Storm got the shoe, and you would have thought she produced a gun. The noise from the fans, that's why wrestling is great. It almost felt like even at this point, Toni still had second thoughts, because deep down she loves this woman. Mariah was like, yes, I don't feel the same way about you. And she hit the Mayday on the stage. Fans were probably losing it here too, because there is so much investment when these two stood on a table that essentially said Hollywood ending. This is when Toni got the shoe. And she didn't just whack Mariah, she bludgeoned her. And you've been watching this like in the street, you would have rung the police. And I won't bring down the crime counter because it was a stipulation, but again, it was something else. By the time Mariah had collapsed too, Toni just gave her the Storm Zero, and she did pin her as the end came up on the big screens. Look, we're going to talk about this later. This probably should have main evented the thing because it was just something else. What an incredible end to this feud. And really, given that AEW was born in 2019, it's one of the best programs they've ever done. To the point, it doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up. If you do have the stomach for it, or the tum-tum, you should watch it. But good grief, it is something else. When Kenny Omega and Takeshita decided they would break me, I swear, man, they cannot be human. There's some weird aliens from a wrestling planet. Maybe it's called Armed Dragoras. The international title's on the line too, and Takeshita must have done a good job with this. Because I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most important championship in the world, so more power to him. Poor Kenny as well continues to make me weak because of the condition he does just get over. And that was the theme of this match. Takeshita was like, I know you have a bad gut area, so I'm going to absolutely pulverize it. And because Kenny Omega is so good at selling, well, I was having heebie-jeebies. It really is one of those matches you have to go and watch. And of course, when they were on the outside, Don Callis would throw the odd shot in there too. But at one point, a table was laying up on its side, and Takeshita picked Kenny up and threw him right into the tum-tum area. And yes, listen, seriously, the way Kenny reacted to that, I was like, does somebody need to check on him? I think he's hurt. So really, when you break that down, I couldn't be more invested. Takeshita also grabbed him and threw him into Barry Barricade, who was not having a good night. And Omega is so good at fighting from underneath, you're just cheering this man on, but he wasn't able to find his feet because, again, he's not quite at 100%. Eventually, he was able to get the crossbody and the you can't escape. But when he went for the Terminator dive, guess who stopped him? It was Don Callis. What a dickhead. Somehow Omega is still able to hit the V-trigger when Takeshita came back with the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the Blue Thunderbomb. Did it work? Of course it didn't. Never does. He soon wanted to try an avalanche version, but Kenny was nonplussed. He's like, man, what a waste of time. When he did get another V-trigger, and he wanted the one-wing angel, but by this point his HP and MP was totally maxed out, and he essentially fell to the floor. Instead, they traded tombstones and bastard drivers as we got loads of 1-2-oohs, and this was another one. We all assumed Kenny Omega was going to win, he's only just come back, but deep down you weren't sure. I was totally locked in. We also had this awesome one kick out after the second power knee driver, or power driver knee. And from this point on, just take your tush, put it in a chair and watch this match. Like we've already talked about, these two don't make any sense. They're 2 + 2 = potato. Kenny was able to get a third V-trigger and a poison rana. This is when Don Callis was essentially getting involved, because he is a piece of trash. When Takeshita and Kenny realized we need to engage in the most devastating battle in all of sports entertainment, a surprise roll-up one. And it was Kenny that got the best of it. He got the 1-2-3. He won the championship. This goes back to that Australia Glam Slam show. This is how you do the surprise roll-up. It surprised you. Then you went, that'll do, pig. That'll do. We got all the pyro as well, and as dumb as it sounds, that does make the titles feel more important. And yes, I do think come August or July, whatever the flub all-in is, it will be Omega versus Okada as we connect these championships. And that could be all time. Now, very sadly, some idiot, that would be me, decided recently we should only do one Golden Up per show to make it more special. This match definitely deserves it. Mariah and Toni did have the feud version, so I've given it there, but this is still getting a whopping up. It was basically brilliant. Which is when Revolution made sure to punch his ticket to say I may be one of the best pay-per-views of the year, because it was essentially Will Ospreay versus Carl Fletcher in a let's just hope they don't die still cage match. Now, Carl climbed the cage instantly, so I was freaking out. I was like, please get down from there. When Will Ospreay had this extended intro to his music, I'm sure you were like me, I was like, oh my gosh, they've def rebelled it, but it was fine. I mean, I would definitely only use this for special occasions, because in terms of theme songs in 2025, well, Will's is right up there. He also literally went right up there, because he also sat on one side of the cage, meaning before this match had begun, Carl and Will were staring at each other, but again, they were in the air. This is why I love wrestling. They then went down, they started to fight. So on one side, you're like, you didn't need to do that, but on the other, you were like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Now, this really is a match you have to sit down with to see with your own eyes, otherwise you wouldn't believe it. And by the time Will Ospreay was doing a whole Kevin Nash and lawn dancing Carl Fletcher into the cage, well, the blood started to flow. By the end of it, Well, there may have been even more blood in this match than the Toni Storm Mariah May match, and even 20 minutes ago I didn't think that was possible. We also then removed Tina the turnbuckle. There was no need because we had plenty of metal, but it was Carl that went into that one too, when yes, he had red stuff pouring from his head as well. This is when Carl Fletcher was like, well, I'm gonna start licking blood. I was like, dude, would you do this in front of friends and family? No, you wouldn't, so maybe don't do it here. It really was amazing from this point on, because they basically tore up the wrestling rule book, because simultaneously people on the internet were like, well, I can't tell what's going on here, who's actually selling, who gives a flub about that, man? It felt like a proper war, which is based on like 8 months of hate. After more total devastation too, Mark Davis walked to the ring. I was like, man, nobody needs you here. But actually, Will Ospreay had a great plan, and he smashed the door right into his head after Mark had cut the bolts. But given they had a bag, Ospreay was like, oh, maybe my Christmas present's in there. And it wasn't, it was a flipping barbed wire bat. Great. Now he smacked Carl with that and raked it into his eyes before he went bang bang. So either A, he was doing a tribute to Cactus Jack, or 2, somebody had once told him that a barbed wire bat is a gun. If that's the case, well, you know what? I don't want to be the person. Will, that's right, it's a gunny gun. Quite clearly, Fletcher was then worried he was going to die, so he smashed Will right in the penis. At that point, when I was making notes, I actually wrote down, well, what doesn't this match have? I then laughed out loud because I am awful, but Mark Davis broke up the pin after an awesome sequence that ended with a Will Ospreay hidden blade. But the laughter came from the fact that he was bleeding too. I was like, referee, you may as well cut your forehead, because everybody can then just join in and have a bloodbath. It really was super cool though, because Aussie Open were going to do all of their moves, but it was Will Ospreay that fought back, and you should be doing that, he's the babyface. And yes, all of a sudden, we had thumbtacks, which ended with a Stars Clash onto the pins. So I just hope Carl Fletcher is all right. Even I fell on the floor and wriggled around, and I was just watching on TV. Understandably, Fletcher was so scared he scrambled up the cage, but William followed, and honestly, I felt this in my bones. I was like, please get down, I beg you. Don't do anything dumb. As it turns out, they did one of the most death-defying things I've ever seen in my life. Now, Ospreay actually chased him up there with a screwdriver, so I was like, I don't remember this episode of Tom and Jerry. And yes, of all the moves, in fact, let me interrupt myself, and I will tell you a story of my own. A few weeks ago in a wrestling match that I was doing, I took my first ever Spanish fly. When it wasn't a top rope, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really scary, because wrestling can be scary. Well, Will Ospreay and Carl Fletcher did a Spanish fly, not just from the top of the cage, but from the top of an AEW cage, and that thing has so much height, and when they landed, I was equal parts impressed and equal parts mad, because I was so scared they were actually hurt. Will was all like, ugh, after this, so I hope he's okay. But seriously, massive round of applause just for the balls, if nothing else. I don't actually know how they did it. Even then, Fletcher was just on his knees going, I effing hate you, Will Ospreay, do your worst. And he shouldn't have done that because it was an instruction. William hit him with this horrendous looking hidden blade. He got the Tiger Driver. He pinned Carl Fletcher for the 1, 2, 3. Will also did actually look destroyed after this, so I do hope he is okay, and the same for Kyle. But nobody won or lost here. If you don't leave this match going, wow, they're exceptional superstars, well, you're allowed. It's your life, man, but I could not have any more respect. And again, some idiot came up with this golden up rule, but I'm also a creative so-and-so, so give it 2 ups. That's right, it deserves way more. And in terms of what they did here, you may never see anything like this again. Now, Will Ospreay has to go on to something big, probably a world championship, just incredible. Not the wrestler. When we got some more controversy. Awesome. Now, let us start at the start. That was a stupid thing to say. But Jon Moxley and Adam Copeland for the AEW World title had a really good wrestling match. They both know what they're doing, and when you do kind of think about it in broad terms, they're probably a couple of all-timers. Sadly though, they did have to follow 2 matches, which were totally crazy, meaning given this had a little bit of a flat finish, but I just think we probably could have rearranged the card a little bit. Because when you give fans pizza, but then you end the night by going, oh, so here's a lovely leaf of broccoli, it's not called that, clover broccoli, a tree of broccoli, I have no idea. Well, maybe you're happy you got a vegetable, but really you want to go back for the cheese. Once again, I don't know why you watch this show either. But they did brawl around the ring as Moxley started to use Rita the ring post. And they even went to Jim Ross, who was on commentary, and was like, ha ha, you saw the start of Adam Copeland's career, and now you're about to see the end of it. I was like, dude, don't say that, it's weird. Moxley kept going after Cope's neck as well, as we saw the ops were watching on, when Adam was able to hit the Edge-O-Matic. Actually, I don't know if we can call it that anymore. a bit worried I may get a cease and desist. Moxley then decided, well, to break your neck, I shall drop you on the concrete, as he did explode the floor. But you know the deal when you are a heel. He was going to powerbomb or pile drive him, so instead Copeland gave him a back body drop, which meant now Jonathan's back was totally screwed, and he sold it for the whole match. Now, his revenge was to not break the Bulldog choke even after Adam got to the ropes. The referee was like, well, you shouldn't have done that. But by this point, Moxley was super mad, so what did he introduce? Well, part 1 shenanigans, part 1B, weapons. The referee tried to stop him, but then Adam Copeland was back and they all came together with a schmoz, meaning the official was down, when John Moxley was like, well, this is great, I can now kill Adam Copeland with the concerto. That didn't happen because Copeland booted the chair into his face instead, and they did run into each other, and we had a double down. You could smell something was about to happen. Now the first was Wheeler Yuta, and he pretended that he was conflicted when he just attacked Adam Copeland. That guy needs to get a backbone. When he also went to grab the Death Rider's briefcase, which has become a very synonymous thing with AEW, but this was the cue for Jay White to come down, and he was able to clear house. But when he was swinging this thing around, well, he missed his intended target, and he hit Adam Copeland. I do believe that's going to tie in down the line. That did lead to a really fun 1-2 when Cope was like, man, I'm going to spare absolutely everybody. And after he'd done that to John Moxley for around about the 32nd time, it looked like he was going to become the AEW Men's World Champion when a hooded figure appeared outside of the ring. He stopped the count. At first I was like, well, it's got to be Solo Sikoa. Nobody likes the hood gimmick more than him. Obviously it wasn't. Christian Cage. Now some people are going, well, why didn't Christian wait until the match was over? But actually what AEW did was way better, I thought, because he hates Adam Copeland so much. He was hanging out in the back going, I'm going to cash in this damn magical contract thingamajig, even if he gets close to that belt, because I don't actually care what happens to me, but he cannot be successful. That's exactly what he did do, and now we had a triple threat. Now Cage hit Cope with a spear instantly for a good 1-2, and he got the kill switch, but just as he was about to pin Adam Copeland, John Moxley was back, and he locked on the Bulldog choke. Now Christian was like, oh my gosh, I didn't get 8 hours last night, I'm going to fall asleep, but in their haze, I suppose, he collapsed onto Adam Copeland while he was still being suffocated, and he pinned him for the 1-2-3, and Christian Cage is now your brand new AEW World Champion. Is what I should be saying, but none of that actually happened. Because instead, Cage did go night-night and he fell asleep, meaning that John Moxley still is your AEW World Champion. And you could hear it in the building, especially given the show. They didn't want to see that, and it fell a little bit flat. Now the twist is, as Moxley was leaving, he bumped into Prince Nana when that maniac Swerve Strickland jumped off the flipping balcony. But that meant when AEW Revolution did go off air, who was the last person we saw? It was Swerve Strickland, and who should become the brand new AEW World Champion very soon. If you're not saying Swerve Strickland, you're not listening. So there was a lot of good here, and it was very well thought out. So when you focus on those aspects, it gets an up. However, this being the very last thing you saw was just such a meh ending, especially because if we had put this anywhere else and taken the cage match or taken the women's title match and put it on last, I actually think people would have responded to this better. And I understand the World Championship has to have some allure to it, but that's fine. You had another one with Mariah May and Toni Storm, so I'm sure on paper this sounded like a good idea, but we're dealing with hindsight here, my friends. So that aspect does have to get it down. Now I actually think come Dynamite, all of this is going to be totally fine, but I did feel it too, right there in my tum-tum, so there's no point pretending otherwise. I really don't think it's a big deal though. Some people are melting down, but more power to you. But overall, there is no two ways about it. AEW Revolution doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up in terms of it being one of those shows. If you're into this kind of wrestling, you have to watch it. Like even if you do it now, after I've told you all the beats, you will still have a damn good time. And that, my friends, is known as fire. Now, I'm just gonna wrap this up because I'm actually losing the ability to talk. So do all the YouTube stuff and click videos. I will be here for Raw, but maybe I'll be like Javon Evans, my whole mouth will be taped up. Honestly, that is the hardest video I've ever had to do in terms of pain tolerance. But I'm such a tough guy. The dumb thing to say, goodbye.